This time on Monkey Life, the British pet trade strikes again as the park prepares to welcome another neglected marmoset.
Little boy's name is Leo, perhaps about 4 months old. We won't be able to confirm until he arrives.
An emergency at the hospital when capuchin Winslow is injured in a fight.
Until you clip all the fur away, you can't see the depth of the wound.
And mischievous Bart's up to his old tricks when Paddy's pond is invaded. Monkey World in Dorset, set deep in the English countryside, is the largest sanctuary of its kind on the planet. For more than 25 years, the team, led by Dr. Alison Cronin, has rescued and rehabilitated abused and unwanted primates from all over the world.
That's one been grabbed.
The park now provides a home for more than 240 monkeys and apes from 19 different species. Its aim is to give them a safe and happy life in as natural environment as possible. At the Marmoset house, primate care staff are busy preparing for yet another arrival. Over the last few years, Monkey World has been asked to take in an increasing number of these small monkeys. Some have been rescued from appalling living conditions. Others simply rehomed because the owners don't want the animals anymore. The problem stems from the British pet trade, as it's still legal to keep primates as pets in the UK. Unfortunately, many owners don't know how to look after them, and the monkeys end up suffering. But the park can only care for a limited number of marmosets, as it simply doesn't have the space.
What do you do? It's really hard. We will never compromise the welfare of the primates that we have here at the park in order to bring others in. So already I'm turning away many people who are calling me saying, we've bought a pet marmoset and now it's either sick, unwell, or unhappy. We're upset. What do we do? Can we give it to you? And I'm turning loads of those calls away.
But in extreme situations, Alison does still step in. And she's just had a call from the RSPCA about a very young marmoset who was taken to a veterinary practice in London.
Little boy's name is Leo, perhaps about 4 months old, and perhaps male. We won't be able to confirm all of those things until he arrives. I've agreed for Leo to be brought to the park today from the veterinary practice in London, because already I can see from the x-rays that he's got malformations on his spine. I was told he has a stiff and bad gait already. She thinks that there's a hairline fracture of the femur. I can see where she's talking about. So for all of those reasons, we've agreed to take Leo on today. But otherwise, I'm going to have to continue to say no.
Alison is hoping that Gabby, one of the adult females, will act as a surrogate mother to Leo.
Gabby in the past has been absolutely brilliant. She adopted Solomon when we brought him in. Hopefully, Leo will just jump right onto her and Gabby can take over his rehabilitation. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but this marmoset that's coming today, even though he's only approximately 4 months old, already has potentially overwhelming physical problems and also overwhelming psychological and social problems, and we're going to try and turn all of that around straight away.
Rescuing and rehabilitating primates is only a small part of the work that goes on at Monkey World. The primate care staff are keen to make sure the residents are stimulated too. They often make them work for their food and provide enrichment for them to keep them occupied. At Paddy's enclosure, the chimps sense something strange is happening. Their pond has been taken over. In the wild, chimpanzees don't swim, but they have been known to wade through water when necessary. So staff are interested to see if they'll be prepared to get their feet wet. The chimps are eager to investigate the alien invaders, although young Bart decides to stay at the back. Paddy is first on the scene. It's his job as leader to check out anything unusual to make sure it's safe for the others. But his fear grin shows he's nervous. Beth, who's one of the highest-ranking females, joins him, but is also fear-grinning. Paddy grabs one of the ducks from the side of the pond and quickly discovers they've been filled with tasty yogurt. Brave Cindy is the first to dip her toes. She's also a high-ranking female and must think it's worth the effort, because after Bixer grabs two from the side, she goes back to the water for another one. The chimps have overcome their fear and are happily tucking in. Bart decides it must be safe, so makes his move. But instead of wading in the pool, he picks up one of Clin's leftovers. The cheeky little chimp then steals from Chatter, who's managed to gather quite a stash. Hebe wisely moves out of his way, leaving Chatter in Bart's line of fire again. While Dad Paddy is busy grabbing more ducks, Bart hunts out Hebe. She's not amused. However, as always, Bart gets what he wants. And with all the alien invaders destroyed, Bart shows he's still got his dad wrapped around his little finger. Most of the time, the primates live harmoniously in their groups. But like all families, occasionally there will be squabbles and disagreements. Today, there's an emergency at one of the capuchin houses, because overnight, leader Winslow seems to have got into a fight and has a large gash in his neck.
The wound is quite nasty. It's quite a size, and it's also rather deep, so yeah, we don't want to take any chances with it.
None of the staff witnessed the attack, so it's difficult to point a finger. Although Erico is a likely suspect, as there has been friction between the pair recently. And Felipe and Franco can get a bit rough at times too.
We think it's one of the boys because of the size of the wound, and they've got quite big canines, but it would be unfair to sort of blame anyone without having been here and seen it.
Winslow has been sedated and taken to the hospital. Fortunately, wildlife vet John Lewis happens to be on site. It's not that unusual for capuchins in captivity to end up with nasty wounds, because they have very sharp nails and they live in fairly close proximity to each other. But this does look suspiciously like a bite. Once Winslow is safely hooked up to the monitors, John gets down to business.
These are good. You happy there? Trouble is, wounds like this, until you clip all the fur away, you can't see the extent of the wound, the depth of the wound, etc.
The wound doesn't seem too bad, but it's important it's treated to make sure it doesn't become infected.
Animals cope with the most horrendous wounds in the wild, but there again, if a wound was inflicted on an animal which was weak for another reason, it might be the final straw. It would be nice to have a light really on it, wouldn't it?
As with all the primates he treats, John is going to use dissolvable stitches.
We rarely use anything else on animals, to be honest, because it means you don't have to handle the animal twice when it, to get the stitches out.
The problem John now faces is how he's going to get the stitches to stay put. Capuchins are extremely dexterous and more than capable of pulling them out.
I'm just gluing the knots to make them more difficult to undo. I'm not saying impossible, I'm saying more difficult.
John has one more trick up his sleeve.
I like algae spray. It's micronized aluminium. It's very antibacterial, and it stays put for a while. It's good stuff.
A dose of antibiotics and the operation is complete.
I want him to feel a bit sore. I'm not going to give him a lot of painkillers. If he's a bit sore, he's less likely to fiddle aggressively with it. You know, pain, I mean, I don't mean severe pain or chronic pain, but pain's there for a reason. It's a warning, and I'd like him to be warned, as opposed to just, yes, please help yourself and fiddle. You know, you can tell a human patient, I'll leave it alone, but you can't tell an animal.
Once Winslow has recovered from the anaesthetic, he'll be ready to rejoin his group. The team are just hoping that he and the other mischievous capuchins will leave the stitches alone.
Good position.
At the Orang nursery, it's a big day for 9-year-old Jolie. The team have decided it's time for her to move to an adult group, so she's going to be joining Tuan, Roro, Xiaokuai, and baby Awan. To ease the transition, her adoptive mum Ame is going with her. The two orangs have been very close ever since Jolie arrived at the park in 2006. She came over as a baby from Moscow Zoo after her mum rejected her, and Ame immediately stepped into the breach. Jolie has been like her shadow ever since.
You know, she's all grown up now, so time to graduate, and Tuan's the perfect, calm, fully mature male orangutan for them both to go across and meet. So hopefully they're going to willingly walk across from the nursery, overhead the tunnel, and into the enclosure next door. We'll let them settle for a few minutes and then bring the man out and see what happens.
Ame seems quite excited to be going somewhere new.
Good girl!
Jolie follows on behind.
Come on, missus! She's the business.
But as Ame steams forward, Jolie has second thoughts. Ame has reached Tuan's enclosure, but suddenly her bravado disappears. She heads back to the nursery.
Didn't like that place. Oh, Ame.
It's another case of spontaneous indifference, I think. When it's right in your face, all of a sudden, it's, ooh, no, really, how much do I really want it? But we got time. The one thing with orangs is time.
After a while, Ame gathers her courage and approaches Tuan's enclosure again. And Jolie follows her lead. But just as Ame arrives, Jolie accidentally touches the electric fence and hastily retreats back to the nursery, followed by Ame.
I think turn the fence off then.
We were nearly there. She's lived in the nursery her whole life since she arrived at Monkey World, and they've never had an electric fence, so she's obviously needs to learn that today. So we've just seen that happen, so we feel a bit sorry for her, so hopefully she'll get some confidence and she'll come back and see what it was.
Could this be third time lucky? Ame tentatively tries again. It's decision time for Jolie. Does she brave it to join Ame, or risk going back to the nursery alone? Finally, they both arrive in their new home. With no one else around, Jolie starts to explore, while Ame keeps a watchful eye out for any trouble. The team decide it's time for the duo to meet their new leader. It's not the first time Ame has lived with an adult male orangutan at the park. She did move in with Gordon for a short time, but it didn't go well, so the team aren't sure how she'll react to Tuan. However, they have noticed over the years that she has batted her eyelids at him from a distance when she's seen him over the fence, and he's a much smoother operator than Gordon.
Today's the day to call Ame's bluff. She's been a bit of a flirt through windows and across fence lines, and today's the opportunity she can put her money where her mouth is.
But faced with her suitor, Ame has second thoughts and heads away from Tuan. Jolie, on the other hand, has never lived with an adult male and seems intrigued. Tuan is used to females coming and going and gives the girls the space they need. Jolie has become quite bold and seems happy to share the climbing frame with Tuan. But Ame is keeping her distance. Her experience with Gordon may be making her wary. Gordon lives next door and spends a lot of time watching Tuan's group. In the wild, male orangutans would generally keep out of each other's way, but here it's impossible. Gordon has matured and grown into his role as leader of his group over the last few years. But compared to Tuan, he's still relatively inexperienced, and he can be very grumpy. The orang team don't think living next to Tuan is doing him any good, so plans are afoot to move him and his gang, Amy, Xiaolan and Lucky, to a different enclosure in the very near future. Winslow has recovered from his operation and is back in charge of his group of capuchins, none the worse for his ordeal. The staff were keen to get him back as quickly as possible to avoid any of the others taking advantage of the situation and making a bid for the leadership while he was away.
Some of the lower ranking boys in the group were quite enjoying the fact that Winslow wasn't around. The more dominant males in the group as well, the likes of Erico, Felipe and Franco, might have quite liked having a break without the boss around. So, you know, they'll quite quickly be put back in their place if Winslow's feeling up to it, so that they know that he's back and he's in charge, and they should probably be a little bit more careful.
Unfortunately, despite all the veterinary team's best efforts, his stitches have come away.
The wound's not looking as good. We've seen a few of the females grooming the stitches, and they've actually started to pull stitches, and Winslow's continued the lovely job they've done. So now we're back to stage one again with that wound.
So the team have had to come up with another approach.
We don't want to risk putting him under another operation to stitch it up and then for them to pull the stitches out again. So we're going to go down the next route, which is to give him antibiotics orally. This will help treat the infection, and we'll also flush the wound out daily. It will just take a little bit longer to heal, but you know, we'll get there in the end.
The RSPCA is just arriving at the park with baby Marmoset Leo. They were tipped off by a veterinary practice in London who suspected the little monkey had been neglected. For the time being, Leo is going to be kept in a temporary cage on his own. They're having to be very careful because he's so fragile. He has problems with his spine and has trouble walking. He also has a fractured femur. Although Alison had seen his x-rays, she's shocked to see how much pain he's in. Gabby loves babies and is very interested in the newcomer. Alison is hoping she may act as a surrogate mum for him.
That was interesting. He liked hearing Gabby's call. I would love to be able to give him to Gabby right now. And she's sitting at the front looking at him, wanting to take him, and we can't do it because his bones are so brittle right now. One little slip, one tiny little fall, and he'd shatter into a million pieces, and really, he'd either die himself at that point or we'd have to euthanize him.
It's very unusual for the team to keep a monkey on its own, but Leo is an exceptional case. The team try to get him to eat.
Come on, little man.
He's not tempted by the offer of a juicy insect, so they give him some porridge instead, loaded with calcium and, very importantly, vitamin D3, which is vital for marmosets to stop them getting nutritional bone disease. The reason Leo is in such a dreadful state is because he should still be feeding from his mum and clinging to her. He nervously gives it a try.
Oh, there he goes. Look, lapping it up.
Many breeders of marmosets separate babies from their mothers too early and give inadequate or false advice to potential owners to encourage them to buy the monkeys. Leo's owner has given a written statement to the RSPCA.
So, purchased Marmoset about a month ago from the breeders, unable to afford companion for the monkey, but was told he would bond with the family instead. I'm not sure if he was hand-reared, aware that the monkey is young, but not aware that he should still be with his mother, was told he would bond better at a younger age. That's classic. Until we see him move, I'm not convinced that he actually can move. Yeah. Oh, he's peeking out. Hey, little man.
Leo is one of the worst cases the park has ever seen. Because he's so frail, the team decide he would be better off in the cage he arrived in because it's smaller and there's less chance of him falling.
His back end does not work at all right now at all, and what's perhaps even upsetting to me is that you watch him try and move and he just trembles, which is maybe him trying to make his limbs move, but I think it's a reaction to the pain. This is a very painful condition, and I think he's in the height of the throes of his bones bending and breaking, and he's a baby. This is one poorly monkey. I hazard to say it's probably an individual that's in the worst condition that we've brought in a long time. It's just tragic. He's tiny. I reckon he's on a knife edge right now. This is no done deal. I don't know if he's gonna make it or not.
Next time on Monkey Life, golden-cheeked gibbon Tien plays hard to get when he moves in with his new mate, Kim.
He's a little bit nervous and shy. Little Kim has just fronted him up.
And Chimp Rodders pushes Lulu to the limit.